We will now turn to the fourth rule. Express what is similar similarly. We mean similarly in terms of the grammatical structures and word forms that are used. Another term for this is parallel structure. This is the fourth rule of harmony. And by harmony, we mean unity, cohesion, and coherence. One way to illustrate the importance of parallel structure is by thinking about our daily routines and how interruptions to these routines, as insignificant as they may appear, can cause an annoyance. For example, when you brush your teeth in the morning, imagine having to look for the toothpaste and realizing that it's in the kitchen rather than beside the washroom sink, where it normally is. Then imagine having to look for your toothbrush and finding it under your sofa. The point is that you have a certain expectation of where things should be, and when those expectations aren't met, you're annoyed. Now let's look at the example of writing, okay? So these instances of annoyance are more subtle. You may not even notice them, but the bottom line is that the frequent departures from your expectations of where words should be and how they should appear result in a weakening of the overall harmony of the paragraph, and they force you to exert more effort into understanding the writer. When we look at parallel structure, one aspect that we want to focus on is sentence structure. All right. So sentence structure, it includes the type of phrases and clauses used. It includes voice, that is active voice versus passive voice, and it includes the order of the information. In the non-parallel version that we see here of the two sentences, two instructional methods are mentioned, okay? But if you look closely, there is a difference in the grammatical structure. You see, in the first sentence, teaching method is mentioned in the by phrase, which sometimes follows a passive voice verb. But the second teaching method, the laboratory method, is mentioned as the subject of the verb, which also happens to be passive. This puts an unnecessary strain on the reader, making it more difficult to register the information. It makes it that much more difficult for the reader to absorb the information because of the non-parallel structure. Compare this with the parallel version. You see how both instructional methods are mentioned using the same construction? Which of the two do you think is easier to understand? In addition to sentence structure, parallel construction also deals with individual words, particularly articles, for example, a and the, and prepositions. Articles or prepositions should be used either before only the first word in a series or before every word. Okay, let's look at some examples. These examples of non-parallel expressions on the left side, the problem is with articles and prepositions. In the first example, the definite article the appears before the first and second items, so French, Italians, but not after the third and last items, Chinese, Afghans. Now this is strange, given that all four have a grammatically similar position, and they are mentioned sequentially. To make this parallel, we should repeat the definite article before the last two nouns as well. Alternatively, we can write it before just the first noun. Now let's turn to the second example. In this example, three nouns are mentioned in order, but the preposition in is only mentioned before the first and last, and not the middle. Again, this is awkward, as all three have the same role in the sentence, so they should also have the same structure. To fix this sentence, again, we have two alternatives. We can either include the preposition before the first noun only, or we could include it before every noun. We also need to exercise caution when using coordinating expressions such as both and, not but, and either or. What's important is that each of the two words in these coordinating expressions are followed by the same part of speech. Let's look at some examples. In the first example, the word both is followed by a noun phrase, while the word and is followed by an adjective. This may be corrected and made parallel by moving the word exam to the position of subject and leaving just the adjective long after the word both. Now both words of the coordinate expression, both and, are followed by an adjective, so the same part of speech. In the second example, the word not is followed by the preposition for, while but is not followed by a preposition. It's followed by a noun. We can simply fix this expression by repeating the preposition after but. In the third example, either is followed by a clause, while or is followed by a phrase, verb plus object, making the sentence non-parallel. We can correct it by placing the subject and modal, you must, before the word either.